Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, our show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight to give you guys all the latest information and education about who these players are. Why is it that Arsenal are linked to them? What are the likelihoods of seeing them turn up at Arsenal? And is it worth the Gunners going for as well? I hope you are good. I hope you are well today as we enter the first day of the European Championships this summer. Plenty of targets to be talking about, plenty of games to be following, but Arsenal are not slowing down in regards to the juggernaut that is the Arsenal transfer news. Basically, it's just a merry-go-round of craziness, depression, fun. It's a whole roller coaster. I mean, a merry-go-round is probably the wrong fairground ride to use. It's most certainly a roller coaster of sorts. Anyway, we are going to crack on with today's show. We are talking about Rodrigo de Paul, the Udinese midfielder, attacking midfielder, central midfielder. We will find out from our expert, Rich Hall, the Italian football expert who knows all the ins and outs of what's been going on in Serie A this season, including, of course, our Argentinian transfer target. So without further ado, let's crack on with what Rich has got to say about Rodrigo de Paul.
So Arsenal's interest in Rodrigo de Paul. Wow, this is a special player in my opinion, a really special player. Often when I've come on here and talked about certain individuals, obviously you give them the praise they deserve, but there's weaknesses in the game as well. But you look at players in almost matter of fact, what can they offer to Arsenal? It's very rare I actually come on here and talk about a player who just makes me smile. You don't see players like this. He's a bit of a throwback in a sense. You look at him and he's Argentinian number 10. He's not some young up-and-coming player. He's 27 years old, socks down by his ankles. You just go straight back to players like Maradona, Platini. I'm not saying he's as good as this. He's not. But you get this glimpse of excitement. If he played in a different era where there's more time on the ball, I think that he would be an absolute superstar. However, for Udinese last season, and let's just get it straight, Udinese aren't the best team in Serie A by some distance, and not even the best version of Udinese. They've been in ages since the Pozzo family started looking at after Watford more. So to have him in the team, they've been brilliant this season. They've also had a goalkeeper called Juan Musso, but Rodrigo de Paul's been the standout man. Just creative, skillful, plays anywhere over the midfield, can take set pieces, free kicks, long shots. He's just fun. He's got a great pass. I mean, 9 goals and 9 assists for Udinese this season is good from midfield. Very good indeed. He can score against the big teams. Now, talking of the big teams, Inter are all over this. And so if Arsenal want him, they're going to have to pay around the 35 million mark, which is where he's priced at. There's been talk with Inter. He's been flirting with Inter for some time. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Arsenal can nip in there. Would he fit Arsenal system? Doesn't matter. Would he fit Inter system? Again, doesn't matter. When Antonio Conte was at Inter, you're asking a question, will he fit, will he not? And it's that idea of he's so creative, he's a player that's just a difference maker. You don't know how to mark him. He's, as I said, he's still at 27, he's not the quickest. There are flaws to his game, but they're not obvious flaws. And what he gives, and he's genuinely skillful. He likes to take players on. When he says he's not the quickest, he's rapid with the ball. It's bizarre, but he's just the close control. It's just excellent. I think with Arsenal, I can't think of a player like this for some time that you guys would have had. Just someone who, I don't know, really gets the crowd on the feet. He's one of those players. I mean, I can't really describe him and compare him to anyone else in that sense, but I think that he's one of those players as well where, like Alvaro Recobar at Inter, I suppose that's the nearest player I can go to. Of course he can go missing at certain points, and you might not see him for 90 minutes throughout the game, but he does work hard. That's not saying he doesn't work hard. He will do the dirty work as well, but get him on the ball and just, it's the reason that people like football. When you've got a player who wants to entertain, it's the same reason that in Italy it's the old number 10, the trequartista as it's called, always was the player who played behind the front two strikers. You think back in the great ones of just the 90s, even people like there's Ortega, for instance, at Parma, and you look at when he had the ball. He's another good example of a player. Kind of reminds me of. He's that player who wants to have the ball. He wants to make things happen. He's unselfish, but then all of a sudden, bang! Something goes out of nowhere in the top corner. He's one of the, sometimes when you watch players as well, you look at highlight reels, and you look at highlight reels, and then some really depressing person like me, watches Italian football and says, "Listen, this guy, he doesn't do this all the time, 24/7." But with Rodrigo de Paul, you're going to get something in every game where he'll have you on the edge of your seat. He's a luxury player. I'll be honest with you. You probably need other players in other positions. But if you said to me, would I want him to go to Inter, for instance? I'd say you'd have him there. Any team that gets him will just smile a lot more. It's rare I get to say that sort of thing. When looking at players, normally it's more methodical, analytical, but not with Rodrigo. Just buy him and just enjoy him.
I really hope that we do, for seemingly Rich's sanity, that Arsenal go out and sign him, because from when you watch him, and since this morning's show, I've spent a couple of hours just going through and watching a load of stuff of Rodrigo de Paul leading up to today's video. And he's just an exciting player. He is just someone that, as Rich says, he makes you smile. And there's not too many players that we've had. The immediate person that comes to mind, not necessarily positionally, and especially not towards the latter end of his time at Arsenal, but Santi Cazorla is the last player that really made me smile as an Arsenal fan. Whilst I appreciate the players that we've got right now, especially the likes of Pepe and Saka, Martinelli sometimes, Smith Rowe, of course, Tierney. They make me. I still look at them very much, and I appreciate their quality, but they haven't got the Santi factor just quite yet. And there's something about Santi that always made me smile. And watching Rodrigo de Paul it makes me want to see him in an Arsenal shirt. It makes me want to say, like, oh, that's a smart piece of business. Santi obviously went out and we got him from Malaga, came in and was a revelation. You go out and get Rodrigo de Paul from Udinese, who, as Rich says, are far from the side they used to be. Remember the days of Di Natale and players like that. Zico, remember back in the day, going way back. But yeah, it really, really would be quite fun, I think, if Arsenal went and got him. And it's not only, of course, just emotional attachment to players that make you want to smile, but it is also the statistical side of the game. And it's that side of the game that we need to look at next, and showing how he compares to some of the other players that we've obviously got. So let's see how he compares to Smith Rowe, Odegaard, and Houssem Aouar, another player that I know a lot of people would like to see at Arsenal. Let's have a look and go through their heat maps first of all. Now, interestingly, what you see from Rodrigo de Paul's heat map is just a lot of coverage. And actually, interestingly, coming to the right-hand side, that is something that's really interesting about his game, is certainly how he's playing on the right-hand side of the pitch at Udinese. Kind of that central midfield role, but moving backwards, moving forwards, covering into the central part of the position. It's a weirdly similar heat map to what we saw with Buendia. That is what is something that's really interesting in this part of the area. If we then go on to how many goals and assists and appearances, 9 goals, 10 assists in 36 games is a great return, especially when you consider who he is playing for at Udinese, and how far down the Serie A they are. He is by far their standout player and their captain, and of course someone that is an absolute talismanic figure for them. So it doesn't surprise me, but the fact that he's scoring that many goals at that level is exciting to think what could happen if he was at a team with a lot of quality around, and that's what I'm intrigued by. Passing statistics, 80%. Obviously, it's not in comparison to your other guys. He is, if you have to think about the context, the situation, he's someone at Udinese who's your star man, who has to make the game work, who's trying to do as much as feasibly possible in there. Whereas Aouar is surrounded by some good quality. Leon, Smith Rowe, and obviously Odegaard playing at Arsenal. Again, there's quality around them, although you wouldn't think it from Arsenal this season. But when you are the fully standout creative figure in your team, It's similar to how you think about the context of Saliba when he was playing in the youth side. There is an emphasis on you to stand out. And I think that's a context that's worth applying when looking at his statistics. Passed into the final third, you can see this again, the proactiveness, 8.77, passed into the final third, trying to make stuff happen. But the lowest accuracy, again, with a 73% accuracy. And I would like, if we're being critical, would want to see that higher and in the 80s if possible. Going into pass into the box, again, 6.08 is by far and away more than twice as high as anyone else on this list. But his accuracy, again, is the lowest at 55%, much lower than Erdegar and around the same as Smith Rowe and Aouar. But it's okay. It's much better than looking at the pass into final third compared to the other guys. But when he's doing it so frequently and trying to create so many chances, you'd think that maybe at Arsenal you would get a buff, a bit of an improvement on those stats for a creative player that's got better players, better movement around him. That is impressive. If we go into dribbles, he's a much more successful dribble on the ball. His technical ability on the ball is great. He's a better dribbler than everyone else on this list. I mean, you can see it from the statistics. 6.84 dribbles per match with a 60% success rate is far and away better than everyone else. He's doing it more frequently as well. It's shown his progressive runs, 4.87 progressive runs in comparison to Aouar in the next highest at 3.17. And let me tell you, Aouar's progressive run and dribbling stats are impressive in themselves. And the fact that DePaul is improving on those is really, really quality. In terms of his shooting, falls down a little bit in comparison to, say, Aouar here. He doesn't shoot as often as Aouar. And when he does shoot, a lot of them from outside the box, and they're not very accurate. But what you do notice is when he pops up inside the box, he tends to be a lot more accurate. In fact, his goals have very much come from inside the box. Only a couple of them so far outside and just on the edge as well. But his accuracy outside the box in comparison to inside is very, very different. You would encourage him maybe, if he can, get into the box more, get into those positions where he's going to shoot, because clearly when he is in the box, he can be lethal. So that is something that I think when you analyse his game and you were coaching him, you would say, look, you need to be getting into the box more. You need to be scoring more goals. You need to be taking more shots in that 18-yard box, because that is where you are so much better than everyone else that we're comparing him to. So that's the statistics. And I think that not only does he give me that level of excitement, that level of curiosity, I suppose, and just wonder about what could happen, there is also the stats to improve on it. Now, we do need to address something which I know comes up a lot, which is his age. Now, he is 27, which is obviously an age that you find yourself wondering, what's the sell on here? What's our investment here? What are we going to be getting? Because you're going to be getting a player that you've got probably about 5 seasons. If you think 5 seasons at the top level. And immediately in my mind, before I even look at the chat box, and I haven't yet, and I bet there is some wonder about his age and questions about his age. But for me, I think people get bogged down sometimes for a 27-year-old in the age. If he was 29 or 30, I'd sit there and I go, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. 29, 30, it's even though he's very good, it's not worth it. The thing about being the 27 age is an interesting one, because you're just about to approach your prime. You're 28, 29, 30 years old. You really think yourself at the top of the game. And if you're going to get 5 seasons from this player, if you think, and you may get more because of his style, as you said, he's quite quick on the ball technically, but his athleticism, you'd say, is that akin to a player that can maybe last a long time at that kind of level, then I don't see a problem, because 5 seasons is a long time and there's a lot of transfer windows in that time. And you have to think about the fact we've got Smith Rowe. We've got a young guy, a pretender, someone that we value a hell of a lot, that can play as a number 10, can play in a wide position, can play with DePaul. And yet I don't think we should be worrying about DePaul being 27, when it's not like, say, you look at our striking situation. With our striker situation, we've got 2 guys that are 29, 30, 31, 32 in that age bracket for Lacazette and Aubameyang. Beyond that, you've then got kids, and I mean genuine, not like Emile Smith Rowe, what he's showing at the top level already, despite his age. But you've got Balogun, who is a complete unknown. You've got Nketiah that's not going to make it, and you've got Martinelli that we really don't know what his best position is yet. it's not for me the same situation as this attacking midfield role. We can go and get a 27-year-old because the investment is getting a player in that's going to improve you straight away and yet still give time for our young star in Smith Rowe to move forward and develop. And that is what's key for me about this deal and why no one at all should be going 27, absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance. Anyway, let's go into the chat box and see what you guys are saying here. I'm interested. How old was Santi Cazorla when we bought him? I'm pretty sure he was mid to late 30s, was he not? Mid to late 30s, mid to late 20s, was he not? He's 36 now, Cazorla, and we bought Cazorla in 2012, so that's 8-9 years ago. Oh, would you look at that? So he was 27, 28. It's the player that I compared him to. That's funny, isn't it? So 27, 28 was Cazorla. He's older than you think when we signed him. So that's interesting. The fact he's just, that's crazy. I thought he was younger than that. He signed at 27, 28 years of age, which is mad. And I think that when you look at now signing someone like DePaul who can play central midfield, you can't just play as number 10. You can play him in a centre mid role. You can play him as an 8. Play him as an 8. You can play him as a 10. And he is impressive in that role. So let's get your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. It's a really interesting case study of the players that we've looked at is DePaul. So let's see what you guys are saying. Buenos Aires, Gooner in the chat is here. Glad to have you here, mate, and appreciate you tuning in all the way, I assume, from Argentina. Says DePaul is very good attacking mid that enters the box like a Ramsey-style player. Interestingly, he takes a lot more outside of the box shots than Ramsey ever did. But yes, I'd like him to get into the box more from seeing his statistics, to be honest. Mr. Joe Kerr says 27 is fine for 3 seasons. 3? What are you on about 3 seasons, Joe? I'm sorry. Your career doesn't stop when you suddenly hit 30, especially in today's game with the treatment, the medical side of things, the athleticism, the diets. Footballers' careers are being extended and accentuated every single year. So 30 is not a cutoff point. It is not a cutoff point by any means. But anyway, he says, but you need to shift them before they hit the 31 mark to try and recoup some of the heavy outlay. The issue is that given our mess, it'll be 2 years before we are fully firing and overreaching. Again, I think right now we need to be buying that age bracket of, yes, sure, 23 to 25 in certain positions, midfield, central midfield specifically. But this number 10 role, I think we've got scope to go a little bit older and a little bit more prime to get the bang for our buck, to be honest. Right back again, and more of a younger age profile. Invest in that area. Invest in the number 6/8 role. Invest in maybe the backup left back, or you can go for an experienced figure. Invest in the goalkeeper that we look to be doing with Onana. When we go for a striker, which I don't think will be this season, next season, then you invest in the younger age profile maybe, or we wait and see what's happening with Balogun. So, but the cam position, all day long, I think we've got scope to go for that slightly older prime option. I mean, you look at some of the ways teams have added these prime players and how they've made an impact. Anoni says Rodrigo de Paul was Grealish before Grealish, quote me. Nathan loved seeing these links to creative players entering their prime like de Paul, Sabitzer and Fekir. I do as well, actually, after so many links to younger players. Aaron says a majority of the best players are 30 plus, which is very true. You look at the best players in the world right now, you'd have to say that most of them are in that 30 plus age bracket. F4 Freestyle says, who's your top 5 young players to look out for during the Euros? Good question. Save it for our Q&A show at 5 p.m. As we do, we try to keep all of these questions for these shows specifically on track and in regards to the topic. But I'll be doing a Q&A show at 5 o'clock, so we can answer plenty of Euro questions during that show. Alan says, Sabitzer or De Paul? Similar profile. Who do you think is better for... I like both, to be honest. They're both great players, and Sabitzer is a little bit more versatile. I just feel like De Paul has that little bit more X factor than Sabitzer, and I feel like De Paul would have more of the impact. I think there's more scope and potential around a De Paul than there is maybe a Sabitzer. But they're both great players, and I think that both of them should be on Arsenal's radar if they're not already. If Sabitzer is available, though, for 15 million quid, you'd have to look on that as an amazing deal, though, which is something that I've seen touted around at times. Yo-Yo says attacking midfield isn't necessary. A press-resistant centre midfielder is. I disagree. I think that the biggest problem we had last season was, 1, creating goals, 2, scoring goals. Last season, our defence was pretty good. And actually, it's the final third where Arsenal are really struggling. And whilst I do agree with a lot of the points that people make by saying if you add a better centre-back, if you add a better number 6, it does help you going forwards. And they're right, it does. However, I do think that we need to, as a priority still, add an attacking creative midfielder, a goal-scoring attacking midfielder, to add that goal and creativity that really held us back last season. So I disagree, Yo-Yo. I think it is certainly necessary for next season. Dan says that DePaul is too similar to Willock. I don't agree. I think that Willock is certainly a much more proactive player to try and get in the box, whereas DePaul does more of his work outside of the box. So I disagree in that area. It's a criticism I have of DePaul. I wish he would get into the box more, but he's so much more creative than a Willock on the outside of the box, whereas Willock's much more main focus is all about getting to the goal and trying to score goals rather than being creative. But again, it's just my opinion. Indanil says Locatelli, Barella, Fabian, Ruiz, Ruben Neves, Tom. Who would you pick if the money wasn't a problem and only could sign one? I don't see DePaul in that list, although I feel like he could be. Fabian Ruiz all day long. Absolutely no debate whatsoever. What fee could we expect for DePaul, says Regan? I think that you'd be looking around 30 to 40 million pounds to get in a DePaul at this stage, which I still think is a fine figure for this type of player. Billy says, if we sign DePaul, we can finally forget about Buendia. Yes, I definitely think that is. I certainly think we can forget. I think we should forget about Buendia anyway. He's gone. He's an Aston Villa player. But yes, I think it would help us in our grieving. Is probably the best way to do it. Omar says, I watched DePaul against Colombia the other day, and apart from a few erratic passes, he looked really good. Iron Cub says, Sky Italy just linked us to Locatelli. Oh, God. another tactical breakdown. Hey, more work for Tom. JD says, can Neves play as a press-resistant, deep-lying playmaker in a double pivot? Yes, he can. If yes, should we look to sign him as we look to play out from the back? Yes. Again, I think that Neves is a great player, and I think so many people are. I want Basuma. I say this every single time. I want Basuma too, guys. Trust me, I really do. But you cannot let your obsession with a player of Arsenal wanting to sign Basuma cloud your vision when you're looking at the alternatives and making you think. I mean, the people that were cussing Lokonga because he's not Basuma is frankly a joke. This is one of the most exciting young central midfielders in Europe pressing for the number 1 ranked national side on the planet right now, pushing to get into that team. And people are turning their noses up at that. I'm sorry. But you've got to stop being obsessed with players and letting it cloud your view of others. It's just, you can't look at players that way. You can't get so attached. It's just, I mean, I've done it and I'm guilty of it too. This is why I'd say it. Like, I'm so guilty. I was guilty of it with Buendia. I was guilty of it with Szoboszlai, and it's hurt me every time. And it really hurts. I get it. But I will still preach and tell you that I say we because I include myself, we cannot do this. We cannot get obsessed. We've got to stop getting obsessed with these players and getting so hurt every single time it doesn't happen. Raf, it's good to have you in the chat, mate. Always a pleasure to see you, son. I'm looking forward to having you on throughout the Euros and getting you on. Raf can be, he's a bit lazy. He doesn't always want to come on. I'm only joking. He's so lazy that when he does his shows, he lies on a rug. I mean, if you go and watch some of our podcasts, unbelievable things. But Raf says, DePaul just goes to show that there are lots of options in creative positions. No need to overreact when we don't get a specific target. Cough, cough. Basuma and Buendia, definitely so. Glenn Cook says, Lokonga looks classy. Hearing we want him as a Partey backup, and that's excellent business if that's the case. Definitely. I'm yet to watch some YouTube highlights of Lokonga, says Yonick. So therefore, you can hold your judgment. Because the only way that anyone can ever make a conclusion on any player, and by the way, ask Clive from the Arsenal Vision podcast, the only way that you can make a genuine conclusion about a player is a YouTube compilation, because that is the most accurate representation of any player that you will ever go and see. Ever. It's categoric fact. That's all it is. Tactical breakdown. Charlie Patino says, Dan, mate, if I could ever get footage of the Premier League 2 games from Y-Scout, they don't offer it. If I ever could, trust me, I'd love to. But it's really hard to get footage at the moment. Alex Jones says, Arsenal fans are known for their reasonable and measured approach to the transfer window. I'm sorry, Alex, I have completely underappreciated how measured we are as a fan base. I've completely undersold us. We are the bastions of hope to all rational thinking in the transfer window. That's what Arsenal fans are. That's what we are. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, I can see the conversation's getting a little bit off topic, which is usually my cue to end the show on our tactical breakdown. If you have got a burning question that you are desperate to get an answer for, we are doing a Q&A show at 5 p.m. UK time. Every Friday we do those and making sure that we will be doing those. Although I have a feeling that there is 5 o'clock might be one of the game times for the Euros. So we may have to change that. We may have to drop it to 4 or drop it to earlier in the day. We'll see. We'll work something out. Don't worry. There will still be Q&A shows on a Friday, but we may have to change the time while the Euros are going on so we can make sure that we can watch them. But yeah, we'll do something. But there's going to be one today at 5 o'clock, so make sure. Omar, I know today's game is at 8. I meant in general, going through the Euros. Otherwise, I would have changed it. But there you go. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Absolute pleasure, as always. I'll see you later on today, 5 p.m. UK time, for the Q&A, for the reveal of who's going to win the ticket into the signed Pepe shirt competition, and also our Euro 2020 sweepstake reveal. I did my sweepstake with a load of my friends yesterday, and you get 4 teams because there's only 6 of us doing it, and you earn money the further your teams go in the competition. And they're done in pots like in the Champions League, so it's fairly spread. I got France, Italy, Czech Republic, and someone else that's completely skipped my mind. I can't think of the third team is, but they are also pretty good. So I'm very happy with my teams, as you can imagine. And I look forward to seeing who I get and who the others get, and most importantly, seeing Lee Judges get North Macedonia. That's what we want to see. Lee Judges to get North Macedonia in the sweepstake later on. So join us at 5 p.m. to find out who everyone gets. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as always, and as always, up the Arsenal.